The war ended without fireworks. There was no final charge, no last heroic stand, no moment where the stars themselves seemed to pause. It ended with silence, spreading slowly across space like a held breath that never fully released. Captain Elias Rowan stood inside the upper chamber of the Zalith capital's spire, his boots resting on a floor grown rather than built. The surface beneath him was smooth and warm, faintly pulsing as if the structure itself were alive. For the first time since humanity entered the galactic stage, a human stood at the heart of an empire that had ruled for thousands of years. The Zalith Dominion had never believed they could lose. Neither had the rest of the galaxy. They were ancient, methodical, and terrifyingly patient. Their fleets moved like slow storms, their strategies unfolding over decades instead of months. When humanity first appeared, loud, fast, divided, and emotionally unpredictable, the Dominion had marked them as a temporary problem, one that would correct itself. It had not. Human fleets adapted faster than anyone expected. Human commanders changed plans mid-battle without shame. Human engineers rebuilt ships in ways that made no historical sense but worked anyway. Most disturbing of all, humans fought not like conquerors but like survivors who refused to go extinct. And now the war was over. Outside the spire, Dominion vessels floated in ordered stillness. Their weapons were powered down. Their signals were quiet. Across the stars, a message had already spread. The Queen had surrendered. Elias was not here as a victor, he was here as a witness. Two Zalith attendants guided him forward. They were tall, thin, their silver-black skin etched with faint, glowing lines that marked status and function. Once they would have demanded he kneel. Now they barely met his eyes. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform draped in dark fabric that shimmered like liquid shadow. The air felt heavy, not with threat, but with exhaustion. Elias slowed his steps. He had faced enemy commanders before, generals, admirals, war priests. They had all carried anger, pride, or fear. This place held something different. Grief. "Captain Elias Rowan," one attendant said in a low, careful voice. "You stand before the voice eternal." He had prepared for threats, for curses, even for attempts at manipulation. He had not prepared for the quiet. From beneath the blanket came the sound of breathing, slow, uneven, tired. Then a voice spoke. It was softer than he expected. Human. "You may call me Queen," the voice said. "Or nothing at all. Titles are heavy things when there is no one left to impress." The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "End it, please." The blanket barely moved, but he could feel her presence, vast and small at the same time. This being had commanded fleets that darkened stars. Entire species had altered their history just to avoid her attention, and now she was asking him to kill her. "That isn't how this works," Elias said. "The war is over. You're protected under interstellar law." How young that word still feels. "Why not one of your own?" "Before I do anything," he said slowly, "I need to understand." He lifted it slowly and froze. The Queen was not lying on the platform, she was part of it. Her body extended downward, merging into the living structure beneath. Organic lines flowed from her spine, her limbs, her very skin, sinking into the throne like roots into soil. She was not restrained by force, she was connected, integrated. Elias' breath caught. He stepped back without meaning to. "My God," he whispered. The Queen's many eyes opened. They were calm. "You see now," she said, "why I asked." Energy flows, communication pulses, a network spanning stars. "You're holding the Dominion together," he said. "Yes. If you die, it's execution on a scale no one will forgive. Longer than most stars in your charts." Behind him, the living walls pulsed, carrying the Queen's existence across the stars. And Elias understood something terrifying. Humanity had not defeated the Zalith Dominion. It had inherited it, and the price of victory was standing right in front of him, waiting to be ended. Captain Elias Rowan did not leave the chamber right away. He stood near the sealed doors, breathing slowly, trying to steady his thoughts. Behind him, the living throne pulsed in a slow rhythm, like a distant heartbeat. Every pulse reminded him that what he had seen was not a symbol or a story. It was real. The Queen of the Zalith Dominion was not just a ruler. She was a system. "Human," the Queen said again, her voice calm but tired. "Your silence is loud. When we were afraid of chaos, more than we were afraid of chains. But humanity changed the equation. Of engineers rewriting code mid-battle, of civilians back home arguing with generals on open networks. It was messy, it was loud, it worked. You saw something in us, he said. I saw the future, the Queen replied. and I saw that it no longer required me. Two human officers entered, followed by a diplomatic AI projected as a floating sphere of light. "Captain," the AI said, "Command is requesting an update." Elias walked quickly, his officers struggling to keep up. "Sir," Lieutenant Myra Chen said, lowering her voice, "is it true?" The holographic forms of human commanders appeared one by one, admirals, scientists, political observers, faces filled with expectation. "Report," Admiral Holt said. Elias spoke plainly. He described the throne, the connection, the truth beneath the blanket. The silence that followed was heavy. "That's impossible," someone said. "It's efficient," another argued. "Horrifying but efficient. The war ends forever. If we prove that victory means erasing entire species, the galaxy will never trust us. That system predates humanity. It's woven into their biology. That's kind of our thing. But not on purpose. Not warships, but carriers filled with engineers, doctors, and thinkers. The galaxy watched in confusion as humanity did not celebrate victory. Instead, they got to work. Across countless worlds, Dominion citizens felt something strange. For the first time in generations, the background hum of certainty weakened. Orders came a fraction of a second later. Systems hesitated. They did not understand why. Only the Queen knew. And she watched the humans build a future no one had planned for, one where victory did not end with death and power was not sealed into a single suffering form. For the first time in centuries, she allowed herself to hope, even if it terrified her. The work began slowly, then all at once. Human ships did not move with the sharp purpose of a final attack. They moved like builders arriving after a storm. Large carriers anchored themselves near the Zalith capital's spire, extending long docking arms. Smaller craft moved back and forth, carrying equipment, people, and ideas that had never been tested together before. From the outside, it looked like preparation for occupation. From the inside, it felt like something far more fragile. Captain Elias Rowan stood on an observation platform overlooking the central chamber. Below him, teams of human engineers worked alongside silent Zalith technicians. The air was filled with soft light, floating displays, and the low hum of living systems responding to foreign tools. The Queen watched everything. She did not move. She could not, but her eyes followed every step, every adjustment, every careful touch. She had ruled empires, commanded wars, and shaped history, yet nothing had ever made her feel as exposed as this. "They are changing the rhythm," she said quietly. Elias glanced at her. "The network." Human engineers spoke in calm, clear voices. They explained what they were doing, even when no one asked. They narrated problems out loud, arguing with each other openly. To the Zalith technicians, it was unsettling. Dominion systems had always functioned in silence with perfect obedience. One Zalith technician finally spoke. "You allow disagreement during critical operations." "Status. But this path leads to collapse if repeated." "But it would mean building a temporary mind to carry the load." Across the galaxy, reactions grew stronger. Some species watched in disbelief, others in anger, a few in fear. Humanity had not ended the war, it had complicated it. Messages arrived daily, warnings, threats, offers of alliance followed by quiet suggestions that the Queen's death would be acceptable. Elias ignored them. One night cycle when the chamber lights dimmed and most workers rested, Elias remained. He sat near the Queen, listening to the quiet hum of systems learning to share their burden. "You could still change your mind," she said softly. "I won't," he replied. "Why?" she asked. "Even now." "Because every species deserves the chance to fail on its own." A code packet slipped through a diplomatic channel disguised as a system update. It targeted the synthetic buffer, forcing it to absorb more load than designed. Alarms flared. The Queen gasped, her body tensing as the network surged. Elias shouted orders. Engineers moved fast, hands flying over controls. The synthetic system strained, lights flickering. "Cut the feed," someone yelled. "If we do, the backlash will hit her directly," another warned. The Queen's voice cut through the noise. "End it now." The chamber fell silent except for heavy breathing. The Queen relaxed slowly. "You risked your fleet." Unfit to decide the fate of the galaxy, Elias responded with a single message. "We are not deciding your fate, we are deciding ours." Space, it was not freedom, not yet, but it was absence, a quiet place where constant pressure had once been. She laughed softly, surprising herself. "What is that sound?" a technician asked. "I think," Elias said, smiling, "that's relief." If this succeeds, my people will face chaos. Worlds learned to breathe without a single guiding will, and at the center of it all, a queen waited to find out who she was without an empire inside her. Elias stood beside her as the countdown began. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "Yes," she answered honestly, "but not of death." And for the first time in her long existence, the queen felt the future was no longer already decided. The countdown did not sound like an alarm. It was quiet, almost polite, displayed as a slow stream of numbers floating in the air above the living throne. Each number represented a process finishing, a connection loosening, a system learning to stand on its own. Captain Elias Rowan stood with his hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the display. Around him, human engineers and Zalith technicians worked side by side in focused silence. There were no arguments now, no debates. Everyone understood what this moment meant. If they failed, history would not remember their effort, only the damage. The queen felt the change more than anyone. The constant pressure that had lived inside her for centuries was thinning, like a tide slowly pulling away from shore. It was not painless, but it was different from pain. It was unfamiliar. She breathed in, then out. "I can feel gaps," she said quietly. Elias turned to her. "Gaps." But her eyes stayed open, unblinking. "That's good," Elias said. "That means it's working. Send advisory packets. Let them know delays are expected." Civil networks filled with questions instead of commands. Some panicked, some adapted, some felt angry. In the Galactic Council, voices rose in alarm. "This is destabilization," one delegate shouted. "Human interference is unraveling a civilization." The room fell into argument. Back in the spire, the queen listened to the distant echoes of her people through the network fragments that still touched her mind. Confusion, fear, curiosity, she had always known everything at once. Now she knew less, and it terrified her. "Human," she said softly. "If they tear themselves apart, it will be because of me. It will be because they were never allowed to choose before. If it passes, they'll cut all human support. We're choosing." Then something unexpected happened. A single delegate stood and spoke. "Humanity is doing what none of us had the courage to attempt," the delegate said. "If this fails, it proves we were right to fear change. If it succeeds, then we must face what we allowed to exist." A human engineer let out a shaky breath. "We're still in." "You're free from the core network." He had seen victories before. This felt different, but the danger was not over. "Final phase incoming," an engineer said. "Physical separation." Elias placed a hand near hers, not touching, but close enough to be felt. "You're not alone." The final connection released with a soft, almost gentle sound. The queen collapsed forward. Elias moved instantly, catching her before she hit the platform. Human medics rushed in, carefully lifting her onto a support frame designed for a body that had never needed to stand. Her breathing was fast but steady. "She's alive," a medic said. Elias let out a breath he felt he had been holding for weeks. The queen opened her eyes. She looked smaller, not weaker, just singular. "It's quiet," she whispered. Elias smiled. "Welcome to being one person. We've been confused for most of our history." But the future had never felt more uncertain. The chamber felt different after the queen was freed. The living walls still pulsed, but the rhythm was slower now, calmer. The great throne no longer dominated the room. Without the queen bound to it, it looked empty, almost fragile, like the shell of something that had outlived its purpose. Captain Elias Rowan stood near the medical platform where the queen rested. She was wrapped in a light thermal blanket, smaller than anyone in the galaxy had ever imagined her to be. Not a symbol, not a system, just a living being. Human medics worked quietly, adjusting monitors and speaking in low voices. Every reading confirmed what none of them had dared to hope for days earlier. "She was stable. She's adapting faster than expected," one medic said. "Her body was designed for load. Without it, recovery is easier." No endless stream of data pressed against her thoughts, just air. "You're still here," she said, her voice weak but clear. Elias smiled. "So are you." Others surprised everyone by holding together. Local leaders stepped forward, fleets reorganized. Worlds that had never made decisions without permission began to argue, vote, and improvise. It was messy. It was alive. In the Galactic Council, panic slowly turned into something else. Wonder, reports arrived by the hour. The Dominion had not collapsed. Trade routes reopened. Defensive lines held without a single guiding will. Some regions even improved, free from delays caused by centralized control. The impossible had happened. The queen lived, and the Empire survived. A council delegate finally spoke the words no one expected. Humanity did not weaken the galaxy, she said. They strengthened it. Back in the spire, the Queen struggled to sit up. Elias moved closer, offering support. She accepted it without hesitation. Careful, he said. She gave a small, uncertain smile. I am learning what careful feels like. But never like this. One night, Elias found her staring out through a wide viewport at the stars. They don't feel like mine anymore, she said. Elias joined her. They never were. What if they hate me, she asked. They might, Elias said honestly. Some already do. I am no longer your center, she said. I am no longer your certainty. Then messages began to arrive. Some were angry, some were afraid, some were grateful, most were uncertain. The Queen exhaled slowly. That was harder than any war. Before Elias left, the Queen stopped him. Human, she said, you can call me Elias. In respect, as Elias boarded his ship, he looked back at the spire one last time. It no longer felt like the heart of an empire. It felt like a place where something ended, and something else began. Across the galaxy, stories spread. About a species that refused to accept false choices. About a war that ended not with destruction, but with release. About humans, not feared because they conquered, but because, when given the power to end suffering by ending a life, they chose the harder path. They chose to help, and the galaxy would never forget that.